Thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you to TREE and all its organizers for inviting me here. And that was a very kind introduction. So I'm going to start off with a poem that's not in any book yet. It will be sometime, but this came to me one morning when I was doing what I usually do, and it's called Wearing Pencils. Here I am, ready to work. Lined yellow paper pad, pencil sharpened in hand. It's comical. And now the waiting begins. And with this, with the passing thought that my preparedness is comical, it is Sunday morning again. Our family's dress parade before the congregation, en route to our regular pew. And I, garbed in a suit jacket, a miniature of my father, am drawing amused smiles from the adults we pass for the 5 tall and sharp yellow pencils lined up and on display in my breast pocket. There I was, ready to work. I had brought no pad or paper. If God wanted me to write, I suppose I figured God would provide. Maybe I was the paper. Who knew? I was prepared. Now all I had to do was sit still and wait. So the waiting when I was young didn't seem like it would really ever amount to much. I'm going to read you a poem that comes out of an experience that I think other parents have had when they've maybe given their children a little more credit than they were ready for. And this had to do with an incident that occurred in a car when my daughter was about 15, 14, something like that. And it's called Hindsight. The surprise bird, flushed from roadside weeds, pauses a split second, weighing its odds against the firing squad of the front grill, almost lingers last cigarette, then takes the dare, stuns us both in a sudden dive under the car. Bad choice. Mirrored in the rear view, its fleet shape shattered by the metals that propel us. The bird tumbles a feather-crazed, "Oh, damn, I shouldn't have done that," high over the pavement, then swan songs the gravel shoulder, a rough black heap. We travel on in silence, my daughter and I, our innocence in doubt. And the plot thickens as later that afternoon, returning from town, she practice drives the quiet concession roads to the cabin. And I am lulled by her savvy, her wheel ease, a natural, the cyclone of open windows, the music we chose, when suddenly she swerves, plows into the shoulder's tall grasses. Dream over. We switch seats. I back the car onto the road, no big deal, but we proceed in slow shock. I could have killed us both, she cries. There is the fact of our fragile enormity upon the landscape, which I forgot, my young bird, while breezing through the daring slipstreams of choice and chancing it, and the inattentive lapse, yours and my own, so very mirrored in the crushed grass and your face. So that same daughter, when she was 16, here I am talking about her. She's okay with this, by the way. I've talked. became pregnant. And it was when she became pregnant that I discovered, or we discovered, how many young women do become pregnant in high school, and how many different directions that goes in. And it's a very complicated situation. Ours turned out very well, and others turned out less well, not well. It's the whole range. And as the father, she went to a high school where that young pregnant teenage women went to, and many of them were there because their fathers had kicked them out of the house, which I thought was, well, pretty terrible. This is called To a Brother. 3 young women of equal and unparalleled beauty are seated at the table of a patio cafe. Within the past 3 years, one of these women has ended a pregnancy. Another has given birth to a child, a girl, whom she placed into the open, waiting arms of an adoptive couple, while the third is raising on her own a young son, a toddler. From a position of complete invisibility, 3 tables away, you are to choose today which of these 3 is your daughter. The women are young and beautiful enough to stop traffic, which is exactly what they hope to do. But they are seated at the outdoor cafe only in part to discover if their beauty still holds. The other part seeks to drown out all voices, whether hailing a taxi, walking past on the sidewalk, or taking their order, in which one of them hears murmuring the word murderer. The other is repeatedly told she is no mother, no mother. And the third cannot avoid the wail that rises like a siren from the throat of her 2-year-old, piercing her rage. It is all about these 3 today, and their bodies, their lives that are revolving on an axis that is the single leg of their table, a flat horizontal surface that supports their leanings forward, their keys, cups, the outbursts of laughter like open arms. There is an urgency here. From a position of complete invisibility, 3 tables away, you are to decide this day which of these daughters of heaven is your daughter, your sister, whose life means everything and all the world. So, if a parent dies, then the kids of the siblings often have to get together to clear out the house, and there's often, from what I've heard, one sibling that's left in the end to do the final clean out. And that, in the case of our family, when my father died, that happened to be me. So, and the last thing that had to be removed from their place was a king-size mattress. And this is called Dad. Picture this. Alone I wrangled your king-size mattress through the house and onto the roof of the car, where it lay like the world's largest grilled cheese sandwich on a hot day, drooping halfway over the windows, but with enough life left in it to rear and kick at its tie-downs, though I drove the back roads processionally slow, 4-way flashers ticking all the way to the dump, where, like some movie alien creature wrestling men on cliff, It tried to take me with it, over the edge, into the garbage bin, but fell alone, end over end, to lie upon the rocks, so to speak, below, where the tides will come and the tides will go, looking like what it was, an old dead mattress. The same old matrimonial half-acre as kids we ragged you folks about for how vast it was, asking why and how do you find each other, yet appalled at the very thought of your intimacy, and where, alone, she found you, on the night that all the fight left you. So that's one end of it, and the other end is when it was actually my father who passed away first, and my mother continued to live in the place. And then when she moved to a nursing home, that's when the cleaning out happened, and that's another pretty significant event in anyone's life. The people who are cleaning it out, the siblings that are cleaning it out, and for the person who's moving. This is called emptying the house. A man I've never met before has counted out 350 bucks. I was going to say 350 million bucks. Boy, I really wish it was that. We thought the furniture would get a lot more money than it did. But, you know, it didn't. Anyway, a man I've never met before has counted out 350 bucks on my mother's kitchen table and carried most of her furniture, including the kitchen table, and with my help, out the front door and onto the bed of his black pickup truck, letting in a lot more cold air than necessary. Our mother did not see her 4 children for 2 days reunite to clear out, clean, box and save, divvy, give away, or dispose of every single item in her life not already gone, to furnish the one small but comfortable room in the home she recently was moved to. The furniture looked much more shabby and used without her to mend our vision. It made the work easier, but we had no idea how much work she was doing, sitting in her chair, filling crossword puzzles by the score, holding together not only herself, but all the smaller stuff that was so precious to our growing up, though their potency disrobed surprisingly before our eyes when plucked from their familiar groupings on shelves and furniture tops and herded onto the table where we chose. You could have spun the table like the crazy aluminum Lazy Susan serving tray that none of us wanted, for how the silver teaspoons and stainless egg cups, the copper, brass, pewter, glass, and Delftware whirled out of orbit without the gravity of her at the center, a gravity they'd enjoyed with no moth or rust since forever. We ventured into corners of closets and dresser drawers, private as prayer, places we dared and desired to explore only as children, and grew involved and talkative till it got late, too late to spend as planned the small windfall of cash on dinner together, and we called for pizza with everything on it to be delivered to the door she would no longer be opening or closing anymore, and sat on the carpet with paper serviettes. the beautiful embroidered napkins, placemats, and tablecloths of our mother's handcrafting prime having been claimed by my sister on the first morning we four were together for the first time in our lives since forever, and carefully folded away. I'm going to read two more, and one is an attempt to lighten things up just a little. I realize that I haven't been lightening things up for you too much. I was what one might call over-churched growing up. And so I grew up with very distinct ideas of where people were going after they died, and where we were going, and where you were going. And so, in the meantime, I have developed my own theology, a little bit of which is in this particular poem, which I'm going to read to you, which is called Crossing into Heaven. So, your old Sunday school teacher had it right all along about Peter at the pearly gates. Surname? The saint asks, gazing up at you over the rim of his reading glasses, as one by one he begins to turn the pages of a large book. Ah, yes, he says, inclines his head and scrolls a long finger down the written text. In the brief eternity that follows, you can't help but notice that the paper is handcrafted, possibly Japanese, and wonder if this is a good sign. The old apostle looks up at last, removes his glasses, and sighs. He explains that he has no choice. He seems genuinely sorry, but inadequate funding and staff cuts have hampered research, leaving your record contradictory and incomplete. It isn't the first time. The keeper of the keys then confides that some days he feels no better than a border guard for a country without enough self-respect to lock its doors, like Canada. Your heart swells and lifts a little, a balloon you're suddenly anxious to hang on to forever and ever. With a resigned but hopeful anything to declare, the saint waves you through, but not before you've caught the unmistakable, jubilant sound of a trio in dire need of a saxophone player. And you've played the sax, you want to tell him, almost since the day you were born, although you must confess you didn't know that little fact until this very moment. So, get it? I know it's not a big joke, but it's... So, in the last one, I'm going to... This is definitely not funny again, but you know, there we go. So this poem was written. I was asked to write a poem for the opening of an art show, and when the artwork was all mandalas, the artwork was put together by the friend of the artist who painted more than 1,000 mandalas. And he was a schizophrenic who had died young, not by his own hand, but had died young. And this was a show put on in his honor. And one thing that really stuck with me with that he was quoted as saying was that he drew the mandalas because it was a way to keep the voices away, to keep the voices quiet. So, and this is the poem that I will close with. And thank you for your attention and the little bits of laughter here and there. And I'm sorry that I did not provide more moments when you could do that. Perhaps another time. So this is called a common thread. This is for the guy who walks down the middle of Cannon Street, jingling the coins in his trench coat pocket, smoking a cigarette, talking out loud, and not walking in a straight line, but not because he has been drinking. This is for the woman straight from Act 1, Scene 1 of Macbeth, muttering, pushing her overflowing shopping cart cauldron of stuffed plastic bags along York Boulevard. This is for the skinny guy with the long beard, wearing only a pair of short shorts, bent over the handlebars of his 10-speed bicycle, keeping up with traffic from one end of the city to the other. There's a story there, I think, whenever he speeds by. That's how he deals with it. This is also for the guy who couldn't deal with it, who left the halfway house across from the mall downtown, went in and stabbed a woman he'd never met before who owned the framing shop. This is for that woman, too, and for her family and friends, and the people at the mall, strangers who came to help her and to hold him. Because in public and in private, wounded or wounding, we all suffer, and suffer each other. And everyone, as the song goes, hurts. This is for everyone and anyone who has ever felt themselves hanging by a thread. This is for how alone it feels. This is not for, but against the voices. The voices that are no harmonic chorus to the soundtrack of life, but a mean-spirited, crazy-making cacophony that doesn't shut up. This is for what it takes to lower their volume, to keep their barking and bullying and lying at bay, their insinuations, delusions, demands, for what it takes to not listen, not obey. This is for how normal and balanced most of the time, most of us appear. This is for the walking, the cycling, the collecting, the jingling of coins in the pocket, the harmonica playing, the dancing, the drawing, the painting, the 1,000 and more painstaking paintings in bright colors that leap out at you when you open the door of the gallery. This is for everyone who goes past this building during the course of a day. This is for the broken, the irreparable, the family that does what it can, that can only watch. This is for learning what it is like at the harder edges of being human. This is for getting from one end of the day to the other, day after day, somehow. This is for anyone and everyone and their thread. A common thread. This is a prayer. It be well braided. Thank you very much.